Bermuda Triangle, said to be a mysterious vortex that claims ships, planes, and lives at will.
Something really strange is going on here, guys.
Some are never found.
Well, we searched, found absolutely nothing.
Others turn up as headstones on the ocean floor. The Bermuda Triangle ranks alongside UFOs and alien abduction as one of the most feared supernatural phenomena on Earth. Now, we will try to unravel its secrets and find out what lies behind the myth by flying into the heart of the Bermuda Triangle. This is the million square kilometers of Atlantic Ocean known as the Bermuda Triangle. Weather conditions here can wreak havoc for planes and ships. A single Bermuda Triangle hurricane can contain more energy than 10,000 nuclear bombs. Ocean swells can climb to 15 meters, the height of a 5-story building. And winds can reach 320 kilometers per hour, 4 times stronger than gale force. Even in calm weather, this triangle of water stretching between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico is known to swallow victims. Some have disappeared without a trace, no SOS, and no survivors to tell their tales. Others rest in the graveyard of ships and aircraft that lies beneath the waves. Firm statistics do not exist, but there are ships, planes, and people that have vanished here with no explanation. In 1918, the supply ship USS Cyclops left Barbados. Shortly afterwards, all contact ceased. And in 1963, the SS Marine Sulphur Queen made a routine call from near Key West and was never heard of again. Scientists insist there is nothing unusual about the Triangle waters, and they are probably right. Yet the legends of this place have only grown with time. So where did this myth about this stretch of water come from? After World War II came the dawn of the Cold War and the terrifying prospect of nuclear conflict. Uncertainty and fear helped foster inexplicable myths that flourished in movies and popular culture. Unidentified flying objects were reported over American soil. Alien abductions were blamed for numerous disappearances. And to the people of the time, these far-fetched tales seemed within the realm of possibility. These tensions of the sci-fi age spawned book and newspaper reports of supposed disappearances and supernatural happenings, just as the number of air and sea journeys and resulting casualties was dramatically increasing. By the mid-1960s, a writer for Argosy magazine coined the term Bermuda Triangle, elevating the myth to even greater heights. But what is the truth behind the myth? Theorists, scientists, eccentrics, experts, and eyewitnesses have all been drawn to the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. Paul Vance is one man who believes in the myth. He claims to have seen something strange on a boating trip, possibly a UFO.
My friend Doug Gerd and I were leaving West Palm Beach, started watching one particular white light
that came across the sky, and then it stopped. This was not an airplane, it was a single white light. And after it stopped, a cloud just appeared underneath it. It was spinning. It kind of looked like a tornado, but it wasn't that long as a tornado. Just almost at the same moment that I noticed the light stop, my engine started running rough on my boat.
Paul Vance's story is impossible to prove or disprove. But science does offer logical explanations for many Bermuda Triangle mysteries. One of the most commonly held theories revolves around the weather. Extreme weather around the world affects shipping routes and flights, and the Bermuda Triangle is no exception. It's home to some of the most fearsome weather on the face of the planet. Could such extremes of weather account for the many disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle? The first and most obvious candidate is the hurricane. These monstrous swirling masses of rain and cloud create the largest storms on Earth, hundreds of kilometers across, with winds up to 320 kilometers an hour. A hurricane spells disaster for any craft in its path. Their power can surprise even experienced hurricane hunters, like storm photographer Jim Edds, who has felt the full force of a hurricane in the Bermuda Triangle.
I was filming the downstairs of a house that had been gutted out by the waves, and I moved to across the street, and as I was going there, a wave came and clipped me from behind.
Edds almost lost his life as the force of the impact snatched him away. He was dragged 90 meters before he finally managed to escape. The strength and direction of every hurricane is monitored in detail by scientists at the National Hurricane Center in Miami. But despite their efforts, Mother Nature still springs surprises. The awesome power of storms such as Hurricane Andrew in August 1992 can shock even weather experts like Jim Lushine, sometimes with heartbreaking results.
I was at the Hurricane Center working, looking at the satellite pictures, putting out the hurricane local statements. My wife, who had lived in the house for 20 years along with my two daughters, actually talked to me on the phone and said, "Jim, is this going to miss us? We think the wind is not very strong here right now." And I said, "No, I'm sorry, honey, this is it."
When Hurricane Andrew reached the edge of the Bermuda Triangle, its full fury hit their home in Dade County.
I hadn't heard anything for several hours of what was happening. Turned the corner around the block where my house was, and my house really wasn't anymore.
Its immense destructive power makes the hurricane one of the most studied weather systems on Earth, and possibly the most rational explanation for the tragic events occurring within the Bermuda Triangle. Every fact we learn about hurricanes may help dismantle the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. From space, we watch their every move, while here on Earth, some scientists deliberately fly into the heart of hurricanes to see what they can learn. One such man is Robert Rogers.
I do research on hurricanes, take measurements in the storms, we fly into the storms. I work with computers to try to better understand how hurricanes work, how they form, where they'll track, what causes them to change intensity, produce rainfall, those sorts of issues. First thing you need is a body of warm water. The water forms essentially sort of the fuel for the hurricane. That's what it needs to sustain itself, to drive the energy, which then drives the winds essentially of the storm.